BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Phil Goodlad and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. It brings you all the news, all the views, all the analysis from our beautiful game. It's Friday the 24th of January and unfortunately it's the morning after the night before for Rangers.
Martinez with the ball! It's in! Manchester United score! Rangers thought they were getting out with a point! And Bruno Fernandes has just lashed it home!
The Ibrox men losing in Manchester in dramatic fashion. But what a match it was. And back in the domestic scene, well, there's 5 Premiership games in the men's top flight on Saturday.
Wonderful ball in, here's Kyogo again! It's a third for Celtic and a second for Kyogo.
Will Celtic be without their talismanic striker as Kyogo looks France-bound? Plus, 2 clubs get back to winning ways in the Cup last Saturday.
Goal! St Johnstone! I think it's Mackenzie Cup.
It's the third one for Aberdeen. It's Duke again.
Can Aberdeen and St Johnstone keep up the momentum?
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
I'm delighted to say that 2 of my favourite people in the world of podcasting joined us this morning. One of my favourite sports editors, Mark Atkinson from The Scotsman, joins us. Mark, morning to you.
Good morning.
And one of my favourite former Scotland captains joins us this morning, Gemma Fay. Morning to you, Gemma. I have to say, with such a build-up, you two better be on your game this windy morning. Listen, lots to discuss. Firstly, let's get right down to it, Gemma. How disappointed will Rangers be? Forget the manner of the defeat last night with Man United's winner coming in injury time. How disappointed will they be to just actually leave Old Trafford without anything?
Look, I think that if you take the game as a whole, and if you take the way in which Rangers had to adapt within it, I think the fact that they got themselves in injury time a leveller, they'll be disappointed that they couldn't maintain that and hold on to that for the last kind of 3 or 4 minutes. It's kind of a strange one because you could say that Manchester United winning 2-1 wasn't unfair, but you could also say if Rangers had left with a point, that necessarily wouldn't have been unfair as well. Yes, Manchester United had a bulk of possession. They didn't do a hell of a lot with it. Rangers had a bit of a sticky period in the second half, but they did well to hold on. And in terms of the injuries that they took and the players they brought on, I thought they did exceptionally well to maintain themselves in the game and get that equaliser. So I think they'll be disappointed based on where they'd got themselves to, rather than versus looking at the game as a whole.
Mark, I woke up this morning to a barrage of text messages on one of the group chats with friends, big Rangers fans, who were saying last night, and they were using naughty words to describe the standard of both teams, but effectively they were saying, well, Rangers were dreadful, but Man United were just that little bit less than dreadful, and that's why they won. And I disagree with that because I found last night absorbing, and I don't know if it's because there was almost a level playing field towards the end.
Certainly an entertaining game, and I think the gulf between the 2 teams is not what it could have been in previous seasons. I think if you'd asked Philippe Clement at the start of this campaign to take where Rangers are right now, I think he would have bitten your hand off for it. It will sting that they lost because Man United are not in a great place, and they were level with a number of teenagers on the pitch, and they were missing so many key players. So that'll obviously hurt. I think Rangers did themselves credit last night at Old Trafford. I think the club as a whole did themselves credit. They performed admirably in a difficult environment, and ultimately they've achieved at least a playoff spot. That was the ambition of Rangers right from the word go in this campaign. And I think a lot of people who are Rangers orientated should come away from that match with a bit of optimism. They saw some really nice performances from youngsters, and they weren't blown over by one of European football's biggest names.
Right, that's the last weather pun we're going to get in this.
I thought you'd like that, Phil.
Well, yes, you thought, but you thought wrong.
I didn't even get that. That just flew over my head.
Oh, there'll be a few more coming in the next few minutes, trust me. Mark, thank goodness we have somebody that can actually explain what Jack Butland was attempting to do last night for Man United's first goal. Gemma, was Butland just unlucky, or was his technique wrong right from the start to try and come through that crowd of players to punch the ball away?
I did have a sigh last night when that happened, thinking I'm going to get asked about this tomorrow on the podcast. Right, let's try and create an analogy here. So, you know when Ahmed got through at the end of the match and he had an opportunity and he sliced it, right? And it was a chance and it was just mistiming, slice the ball and it goes wide. We don't talk too much about that, but we talk a lot about this because the consequence of slicing a ball with your fist is it goes in the box. It was a timing issue. He got the timing wrong. He's come under the ball. And that's it. It's just an error. And like, I get a bit frustrated at times when people are like, he could do better, he should do better in that situation. Well, yeah, of course he should do better in that situation. He's not intentionally gone out to miss time and slice the ball, but that's all it is. I think the important thing is how he reacted after that. Because he continued to come out. Before that, actually, I don't think he was dealing so well with the crosses. The mistake was made. And then after that, I thought he did particularly well. He made some good saves.
Was that, do you just think that was a one-off, or was there a technical aspect to that?
It's a timing issue. It's just a timing issue. It's just a mistake. It's like a ball comes across, you're watching it in the air, you go for a volley, and it comes off the side of your foot. Like, that's the best way I can explain it. But when it happens to a goalkeeper, because there's not, to be honest, that many goalkeepers out there, everybody thinks it's horrendous. And look, I know he's made a couple of mistakes, but people make mistakes. He's going to make mistakes. But he's made up for it for some of the other stuff that he's done in that match. And we can sit here and say if he didn't make that mistake, you know, Rangers could have had 1-1. Yep, if Yilmaz had actually had that shot, if Raskin had taken a better touch, we could go through the whole team. If they'd all not made mistakes in key moments, if Dessers had played the ball right instead of left at times, they could have been through. It's just highlighted because he's a goalkeeper. And that's what happens. When you make a mistake as a goalkeeper, it's huge. And as goalkeepers, we have to accept that.
I love the Goalkeepers Union, and I love the passion Gemma's now showing and standing up for her own. Listen, if we are going to question Jack Butland's technique, we have to praise Cyril Dessers with 2 minutes to go. Now, maybe I'm just showing my age here, but that was a la Gary Lineker in the semi-final in 1990 against West Germany for England, was it not? The way that he just took the ball over.
You are
his shoulder
showing
and
your
banged it.
age.
Well, when a goal is as classy as Lineker in 1990, regardless of who he's playing for.
Cannot believe you just put Lineker and classy in the same sentence, but we'll just wash over that one, shall we?
I said his goal.
Should we let that one blow through?
Like, do you remember, you know, at 5-6 last night when that bloody klaxon went off and we were all terrified when our mobile phone went off? Right. So I'm going to get that sound effect in every weather pun that's going off. Mark, Cyril Dessers, he has his detractors, but my word, there's just times when this striker looks like solid gold when he can take a goal like that.
I was surprised there wasn't a klaxon that went off when that goal went in, given that it was so unlike Cyril Dessers. I'm actually a bit of a fan of Cyril Dessers. I don't think he's as bad as a lot of people make out. He does a lot of good things. He's frustrating because he's not consistent, and that was a fantastic goal. The way he took the ball at the sky, control, and then unerring left foot finish into the bottom corner. I was so pleased for him. It might be his last act as a Rangers player, or last tangible act as a Rangers player, given that he is being linked with a move away. He's fallen behind Hamza Egeman in the pecking order. That was a reminder of what he can do. I think he's now scored 16 goals this season for Rangers. I think he scored just over 20 last season as well. Pretty decent figures for a striker. I think when he signed, most Rangers fans would have taken that. It's just the other stuff that happens, the header that he puts just wide, some of the kind of clumsy moments he has, as Gemma alluded to, when Rangers were going forward. But if he does leave Rangers, and I think there's a good chance that he will, that's one of the goals that he'll be remembered for. It's just a shame that it didn't actually matter in the end.
Yeah, I heard somebody say that he Cyril Dessers reminded them of Andy Cole, because Andy Cole used to have about 5 chances and blaze 4 of them like wide over the bar, skittling off the post, and then he would score the most improbable one and then go on a wee run. Gemma, let's round things up for now with with the bow on top of last night's disappointment for Rangers, which is they're through to the knockout stages, albeit into the playoff round. There's still a chance to go directly into the last 16. But they'll take confidence from last night going into next week's final game against Union Saint-Gilloise at Ibrox.
They will, but let's be honest. Union have won 3 in a row now. They're not too far behind Rangers. What I think they'll take confidence from, most of all from that match, is their adaptability. I thought they've got problems in defence, but I thought Tavernier did really well when he slid into right centre back. Not just in terms of his positioning and everything, but in terms of his communication to the youngsters around them. You know, he did really well. The guy's taken a lot of flack over the last season from the fans, and I thought he turned up last night. The youngsters. Are you
saying he's a calm head in a storm?
Oh no, I can't engage with that. That's awful.
Okay.
I thought Bailey Rice. I thought he got a lot of plaudits when he came on last night, and I think the biggest plaudit you can give to him is it didn't look like there was an 18-year-old in that position. Yeah. It's just a level of maturity there. So I thought the team did well to adapt to the circumstances. You've got to worry a little bit about Cherney. It did look a little bit like a hamstring, and if it's a hamstring, that's not great. But I think they will take the confidence from, as I say, their adaptability in the game. They know they've got goals in them as well. I completely agree with Cyril Dessers. He's frustrating in the opportunities he misses. But even at that, he's still on 16, 17 goals in a year, even though he's been on the bench for a large period of time. So it's a real opportunity for Rangers. And in terms of their bank balance, it's a real opportunity for Rangers because we all know they need that coin in the bank.
Yeah, a late winner at Parkhead on Wednesday night for Celtic, a late defeat for Rangers in the Europa League last night. It's been a topsy-turvy European week for Scottish football. Right, let's move on to Saturday's games. Mark Atkinson, I want you to start ringing your contacts right now. Forget the weather and tell us, where will Kyogo Furuhashi be playing this weekend?
Potentially nowhere. I suppose it depends on how quickly the impending transfer to Rennes is completed. He was pictured on Thursday evening in Brittany to go and complete his move.
We had the Rennes manager yesterday come out to the reporters and said, you know what, I might give him a few minutes against Monaco on Saturday. Yeah,
I mean, Jorge Sampaoli is a colourful character, flamboyant South American manager. He often speaks his mind. I don't think it's quite there yet. I think there's still a few things to go. I'm sure he'd love to have him in his team, given that Rennes are really struggling this year. And that's why they're really keen to get Kyogo in quickly. But you have to remember, Celtic have got business to take care of too. They want to try and get some replacements in. Brendan Rodgers has made no secret of wanting to strengthen in the forward areas. This will allow him to do that. We know that Jota has emerged as a real live target to come back. He was a very successful player. So I think there's still a few more things to get done there before Kyogo Furuhashi is officially a Rennes player. But look, it's happening, isn't it? You don't fly across without a deal being pretty much brokered. I think the big question is now for Celtic, it's not just Jota that needs to come in. They need to get another striker as well. They can't be reliant just upon Adam Ida to get the goals between now and the second half of the season, given that he's on a really poor run of form as well in terms of goal scoring. And not having him claiming any part in that winning goal against Young Boys, that is definitely an own goal. His celebration was a man trying desperately to cling on to that goal.
It was a bit embarrassing, was it not?
Yeah. Actually, when I was in the press box, I was like, did I see that rightly? I'm pretty sure that was Loris Benito that put the ball in the net. But I suppose when you're on that run, you have to take everything that you can. I like Adam Ida as well. He's just in a bit of a funk, you would say, in terms of goals. But they need more. And they will go and get more because there are players that they have got on their list that they want to go and get. It'll be weird watching Celtic without Kyogo, but his time at Parkhead is coming to an end.
Yeah, and just before we go through the rest of the games, and Gemma, I'll come to you in just a second. I'm really looking forward to Celtic Dundee this weekend because I don't know, Dundee, I've just really enjoyed watching Dundee or being told the morning after games or listening to Tony Docherty just how well they've played, especially against Dundee United earlier this week, they, I think, will fancy their chances against Celtic, who, of course, they drew with last time they faced.
Yeah.
Sorry, on you go, Mark.
Sorry, Gemma, cut you off there. Dundee are a really nice team to watch, and they're evolving since the departure of Luke McKerran. They've got, I think, one of the nicest blends of midfields outside of the old firm. And, of course, they played really well against Celtic at Dens Park. And they recovered well from the concession of a late penalty to go and beat Dundee United next time out. But going at Celtic Park's a different thing entirely. It is a different ballpark. I just think they'll find it tough against that Celtic team in that environment. But if there is one team that's got the kind of tenacity and fighting qualities to go there and the football ability to pinch something, it probably is Dundee, but I would still fancy Celtic to come away with all 3 points.
Hearts against Kilmarnock. Gemma, Hearts haven't conceded in their last 3 league games. Killie haven't won in their last 6 away matches. This is a stick-on 0-0, is it not?
Looks like it, doesn't it? Looks like it all the way. No, as you say, that Hearts have started to find that form that Neil Critchley has been working to get. And as you say, 0-0 against Aberdeen, which they probably should have taken all 3 points from. A good 1-0 win against Dundee United and Motherwell. So it's an interesting game. And Hearts league position the 11th, but the way that this league is at this moment in time, and we take, say, Quayle and Johnson out of that equation, they're all much of a muchness. So they're currently, 11th with 24 points. They win this, they could jump up to 7th if results go their way. So it's a really interesting game. I think that Kilmarnock have had bar the fact they can't keep 11 men on the pitch, I think that's kind of a little bit adding to this. They've had a bit of an up and down season. And it kind of feels like it's one of those seasons where they're puffing their way through it. They have good performances and then they have abject performances, and it must be very frustrating. But back to your earlier point, yeah, it does kind of seem like a 0-0, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned that.
And are you going to hold me to these scores?
No,
and then
I'm not.
slag me on the next podcast saying that I got them all wrong when I didn't.
Firstly, slagging is such a strong term. The producer did say that perhaps to save face with some of our more favourite pundits who are not particularly good at punditry when it comes to.
You didn't even wait to the next podcast, did you?
No. I was just like, as one of my favourite former Scotland captains, I'm not going to put you in the position of going down the table and thinking, right, who's going to win? But I will do this. You mentioned Kilmarnock and Hearts finding a bit of form, Kilmarnock a couple of wins, they'll go shooting up the table. They could do a Hibs. And Mark Atkinson, the very fact that I'm about to say Hibs look impressive at the moment, having gone 8 games without a defeat. The last time the three of us were chatting on a pod, we were launching staunch defences of David Gray because he seemed to be just 90 minutes away from the sack.
We did well though, didn't we?
Well, we did. Yeah. Mark, Gemma and Phil, for all your management consultancy needs, I think is probably the next thing. But, I mean, this is, in a season so far of many stories, David Gray's turnaround at Easter Road must be right up there.
Oh, massively. David Gray deserves enormous credit for turning Hibs around. He was 90 minutes away from the sack on more than one occasion. He was under immense pressure, 36-year-old in his first management job, and he's carried himself with class and decorum. And most importantly, he's kept that group of players on side. Even when they were bottom of the league on a poor run of form, those players never downed tools for him. And that's quite rare for a team that starts the season so poorly. He's created a different culture within the Easter Road dressing room. He's got a team that's physical. He's got a team that's pretty well organised and carries a goal threat. And he's made some big decisions at key moments. He changed his goalkeeper. He brought in Jordan Smith for Joseph Bursick. He changed his formation from a back 4 to a back 3. He's got Martin Boyle firing again. He's managed to get Ellie Yuhan in a reasonable place to go and perform. All are great feathers in the cap of a head coach. So enormous credit. And they're on a great run. They go to Dingwall. I think they're travelling up first thing this morning to try and beat the weather. It's going to be an arduous journey up there. They come away with 3 points from Ross County, which I think they are favourites to do so. They really set themselves up nicely for a proper tilt at European places in February. It's been a fantastic change around, and it's so pleasing and refreshing to talk about a manager that has done that, because it would have been so easy for the Hibs board to pull the trigger on yet another manager.
You're right to mention the weather, and of course we should say that the storm with the red weather warning that's now in place, that finishes tonight across the central belt and certain areas of Scotland, which means that tomorrow should be okay for games, but there may be a backlog. I think it's just prudent to say, look, before you set out, check with the clubs, check with the police, check about your travelling across the country this weekend. 2 other matches, Aberdeen, St Mirren, St Johnstone, Motherwell. Who would have thought we could say that Aberdeen and St Johnstone go into this match on the back of victories amid their current run, but the Cup doing for them. Aberdeen against St Mirren. Gemma, quickly, what do you expect of Pittodrie?
I would hope for Jimmy Talleen that he can take the momentum from that stoic victory against Elgin last week and turn that into 3 points. They just, by hook or by crook, need a win in the league. They just need to find it.
St Johnstone, Motherwell. Mark, quickly, Motherwell booed off last week when they lost in the Cup. St Johnstone with a timely win. It's all set up for probably yet another 0-0 tomorrow with these two.
You talk about teams needing wins. St Johnstone have to win against Motherwell. They have to try and use some of that positivity from last weekend against the same opponent and go and win if they're to have any chance, in my opinion, of overhauling the deficit between them and 11th place. And Motherwell, Stuart Kettlewell came out swinging yesterday at his critics. He was basically saying, look, put yourself in my shoes. I give everything for this club, this job. It's a big one for him as well. I think those Motherwell fans will want a reaction. It's a really fascinating encounter at McDermott Park. A lot on the line for both clubs, I would say. Yeah,
St Johnstone 9 points marooned at the bottom of the table. Listen, you'll keep up to date with everything that happens this weekend. Sports Sound on BBC Radio Scotland, 2:00 tomorrow afternoon. Kenny McIntyre and the team will take you through. That's all we've got time for. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Gemma, pleasure as always to have you both on the podcast. Remember, new episodes every weekday here of the Scottish Football Podcast. There's 2 ways to do it. Turn your notification on, which makes it a lot simpler. The episodes just drop onto your little device. If you do that the old-fashioned way, go to BBC Sounds and press that button that says play, and you'll get Gemma and Mark. And the great thing is, when you finish the podcast with Gemma and Mark, you can just press play again, and you can just continue doing that as you shelter from the storm. I'm Phil Goodlad. Enjoy our beautiful game. Stay safe this weekend, and we'll speak again soon.
Sir Alex Ferguson is the most successful British manager of all time.
Nobody is above him or this football club.
So how did an apprentice toolmaker from Glasgow become one of the most iconic figures in sporting history?
His strength of character, his determination, the fight in him.
He can be persuasive, he can be charming, he can be frightening.
I'm Kelly Cates, and this is Sporting Giants Sir Alex Ferguson.
I didn't want to feel, I couldn't feel.
Listen on BBC Sounds.